Hello everybody, Jeremy Dickinson here. In this video I'd like to conclude my discussion of Judith Jarvis Thomson's defense of abortion, her landmark essay from the 1970s, which really shook up the abortion debate. So remember, the way she shook up the abortion debate was to assume that fetuses are persons, even from conception, and show that still abortions can be permissible. So the traditional pro-life arguments would have it that if you establish that fetuses are persons and they have the right to life, and that right to life is morally more demanding, morally more significant than the right of a mother to decide what happens in and to her body. Thomson says it's wrong to think that thinking that fetuses are persons is enough ultimately to establish the anti-pro-choice position. Okay, so remember, she talks about the violinist case, and she argues that just as you'd have every right to unplug from the violinist, a mother who's raped would have the right to unplug, quote unquote, have an abortion in cases when she's raped. In the rapidly growing child case, she says, just like it'd be permissible in that case for you to self-defend against a rapidly growing child mutant in a very, very tiny home, mothers whose lives are in danger because of a fetus would have the right to self-defend and have an abortion in those cases. And then lastly, she uses the case of the people seeds to say that just like it'd be permissible to uproot and thus kill a people seed that took root in one's home, it'd be permissible for a couple to opt for having an abortion in cases where they exercise responsibility and use reliable contraception to avoid getting pregnant, but yet still get pregnant. So it's really that last case that she's really pushed things to the pro-choice side. Now, as I also noted, she doesn't think that she's drawn a firm line. She's just established paradigmatic cases in which she thinks it's permissible for women, for mothers, for couples to opt for having abortions. There can be cases in which it's impermissible. She gives a clear case where a mother who's pregnant, 7 months, decides that she wants to have an abortion in order to enjoy vacation. Well, that seems to be a trivial reason. Okay? And it's in thinking about this kind of case that we can learn quite a bit more about what Thomson thinks about the abortion issue. So what's the difference between the case where a mother decides to have an abortion when she's 7 months pregnant for a trivial reason like going on holiday, and cases like the ones that we looked at, cases involving rape, cases involving the rapidly growing child, and cases involving couples that have taken reliable efforts to avoid getting pregnant using contraception? Well, the difference seems to be this. In the case where we imagine the woman who has a trivial reason for having an abortion, it seems like in that case, all things being equal, she's given the fetus, the life in question inside of her, the right to the use of her body. She's 7 months pregnant after all, and that's kind of the normal case. The normal case is going to be cases where females, women, people get pregnant, and they voluntarily do, and they plan on going through pregnancy, and they plan on coming to term and having a child. And in many of these kinds of cases, what happens is there is the giving of the fetus the right to the use of the body in question. And when that happens, then what that calls for in order to renege or go back on that giving of the right, the bestowing of the right, is some significant reason. So it can't just be a trivial reason to override the right that's been given to a fetus to the use of the mother, the female's, the person's body. So in thinking about the other cases that are different, in each of those cases, what Thomson would argue is that the individual in question didn't give the either the violinist, the rapidly growing child, or the people seed the relevant right to the use of the body, the home, or the home in the third case. So let me be more specific. That was a bit abstract, that last bit here. In the case of the violinist, you didn't give the violinist the right to the use of your body, so that you have the right to unplug from the violinist, even if that means that the violinist is going to die. In the case of the rapidly growing child, Okay? It may be true that you gave the child the right to the use of the home. That certainly may be possible. But given the gravity of the situation, the fact that your life is now in danger overrides the right that was given to the child to the use of the home. Okay? And then lastly, in the case of the people seeds, you never gave the people seed the right to the use of your home just because you opened your window for fresh air. Okay? So in thinking about the analogous cases now, in the case of the mother who's raped, the woman who's raped, the person who's raped, she didn't give the fetus in that case the right to use of her body. So she has a right to abort. In the case of the rapidly growing child case, when the mother may have given the fetus the right to use of her body, but that right gets outweighed by a very, very significant, non-trivial reason that her life is now in danger and that she has the right to abort. And likewise, when a mother has taken reliable steps to avoid getting pregnant, and then she gets pregnant, she hasn't thereby given the fetus the right to use of her body just because she engaged voluntarily in intercourse. Because she was trying to avoid getting pregnant, and that she got pregnant doesn't mean that she thereby gave the fetus the right to use of her body. So in that case, she has, guess what? According to Thomson, the right to abort the fetus. So that's how these cases are different from one another. If one has given, right, the fetus the right to the use of her body, of one's body, then very, very significant reasons would have to be provided to outweigh the right that's been bestowed. Like, think about the violinist case for a minute. Now, suppose you made an agreement with the violinist to help him out. Okay, you decide to do something heroic. I'm going to help out this violinist in this kind of case, and you agree to everything. You incur obligations to the violinist. Okay, and then the violinist goes unconscious, and there you are hooked up with the violinist. Now, in order to get out of this agreement, your reasons would have to be really good. Right, given the severity of the consequences of unplugging from the violinist. That doesn't mean that there aren't situations, right, in which it would be permissible for you to unplug. It just means that your reasons would have to be good. Your life is in danger, okay, or you have some major obligation to others that you'd have to live up to, etc., etc. Okay. So, Thomson, right, concluding points about Thomson. She doesn't argue that the radical pro-choice position is true, that abortion is always permissible. It's certainly impermissible, okay, in a range of cases. Okay. But she also concedes that in the violinist case, that all she's established is the right to unplug. Okay? And this is significant. It's an interesting concession toward the end of her piece. Suppose, she argues, you unplug from the violinist in a perfect accordance with your right to do so. But it's a miracle. The violinist stays alive. Here's what Thomson says. You do not thereby have the right to slit the throat of the violinist and ensure the violinist's death. And that seems right, doesn't it? So having the right to unplug, even though, given technology, that's most likely going to lead to the death of the violinist, doesn't mean you have the right, you thereby have the right to ensure the death of the violinist were the violinist to somehow survive the unplugging. Analogously, in cases where a woman, a person has been raped, abortion, she goes to have the abortion, the person goes to have the abortion, the fetus survives the abortion. Miracles happens in that case. Some medical anomaly occurs. Here's Thomson. The person in that case does not have the right to ensure the death of the fetus. Modern technology is such that abortion is almost inevitably going to lead to the death of the fetus. But could there be a medical anomaly? Sure. In that case, aborting the fetus, right, going in for an abortion procedure doesn't give the mother the right to make sure that the fetus dies. And that really is how Thomson's essay concludes, with these last two concessions. This opens the door for all kinds of possible discussion points and issues worth discussing. One thing that may jump to mind is what if we had the technology in place? What if we had the possibility of doing womb transfers? We had the technology available to do that. Now, this is precisely the idea developed by Syracuse University professor Lawrence Thomas. Okay, he develops the idea of a womb transfer procedure that's possible given developed technology. In that case, right, interesting questions arise about the acceptability, the unacceptability of abortion. I won't get into those here. I raised this issue at the end just to get you thinking about how it might be the case, if Thomas is right, not Thomson, but Thomas, the SU professor, that technology may influence, it may have an impact on how we think about the acceptability, unacceptability, ethically speaking, of abortion. I'll stop here, and that concludes my discussion of Thomson's defense of abortion, groundbreaking work in the abortion debate. Be on the lookout for another video on abortion. I'll be looking at the pro-life side developed by Don Marquis. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you have any questions, let me know. jadickin@calpoly.edu, jedickin@syr.edu. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.